Okay, good morning and thank you for joining our Sage Intacct release webinar. My name is Kim Anselmo and I will be kicking off our webinar this morning with just a couple of housekeeping items. First, you can maximize and minimize your screen, your webinar pane actually, by the presentation by using the red and orange arrow buttons. And during the webinar, we also want to encourage you right down there at the bottom, you can see there's a question pane. Please do enter that in and Irene and David will answer them as soon as they can. Second, just wanting to make sure that you have good audio. So make sure that if you're using your computer audio, you have the audio button selected for that, or your phone, if you're using that, to select that button as well. To qualify for CPE credits, you need to actively respond to the polling questions. We do have 4 questions today, and stay on for the duration of the broadcast. If you do have any technical difficulties answering the polling questions, do send an email to elevate@armaninollp.com with your name, the date of the session, along with your polling responses. Any questions during the polling questions or throughout the webinar, go ahead and submit them via chat or into that question pane, and again, we'll get to you as soon as we can. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to your presenters today. It's going to be Irene Bushnell and David Gunn. Irene has 30+ years of accounting experience and involved in implementing accounting software packages throughout her entire career. And David is a graduate from Westmont College with a degree in economics and business and currently a consultant for managed service clients. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to David to get you started.
Thank you, Kim. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you're at. Really excited to be with you today, and we're going to go ahead and just jump in because we've got a lot to cover today. Just real quick, our learning objectives for today are going to be to identify the new release features of your solution. We're going to demonstrate new user experience and navigation so you can adapt easily, and we're also going to help you to manage the latest release of the solution for maximizing its potential. Next slide. Here's our agenda for today. Again, not going to cover this because we'll be getting to them, yeah, here's everything for today. All right, first is user experience. So next slide. You're going to see this note throughout our presentation. Irene and I just want to make sure that we're calling out when things have been voted on and came through the community. So you're going to see this note, this idea came from the community there, just to highlight those things that are again, coming from community. So only change in user experience in this release is gentler, kinder timeouts. And so in this release, when you're near the end of your session or your inactivity duration, you're now going to be receiving a notification so that you can take action before your session times out. And so in addition to this, if you're working in another tab in your browser or in another file or application, let's just say you're working in an Excel file, you might not realize that a timeout is approaching. And so depending on your browser, you're now going to be able to enable desktop notifications if you grant the permission to do so. This will be done in your user preferences menu and the enable desktop notifications for Sage Intacct timeouts. Again, depending on your browser, it might be a little different from browser to browser, but cool new functionality here in user experience. Next slide. Next, we'll jump into a few changes in admin and company. The first of those being the ability to effectively manage your process with checklists. Again, another idea for community, we wanted to call this out. And Irene's going to be kind of just navigating in the background, kind of showing what's going on here with checklists. But this basically what this is a new feature to assign tasks, see responsibilities, and understand your progress on your tasks as well as others within Sage Intacct. And what this is really going to do is it's going to help improve your quality and your processes within Intacct as a whole. So this is really easy to set up. All you're going to do is you're going to go to company, all, checklists. Here you'll be able to create categories, you'll be able to create statuses, you'll be able to assign statuses as well, and you'll be able to have overall checklists for any of your month-end, year-end kind of processes. So really great new functionality here in checklists. Again, just to help improve the quality and your overall processes. Next slide. Next, we'll cover this really quickly, but just a change here is that the employee dimension has been added to the company terminology. And so you're now able to add company-specific terms for employee. So let's just say, for example, you refer to your employees as staff members. What you'll be able to do here is go ahead and change that to the singular as well as the plural. And so anywhere that an previously employee would be tagged in the system, any transaction, any record, it'll now translate to your terminology for employee. So this, as you might know, was available for lots of other dimensions. It's now been expanded here. So cool new way to customize the system in the employee dimension. And then finally, in admin and company, we'll talk about the enhanced data delivery service experience. We do want to note that obviously this does only apply to DDS customers. So what was added here is that there's a new time notification that's really going to help you to streamline your overall job experience. And so the limit of DDS jobs per day has a new limit, and it's also going to add a notification that displays the exact time when you're able to run another manual DDS delivery. And so the whole change is really just made to help you be much more efficient with how you're running your jobs, knowing how they're scheduled out, and when you're able to manually run another to maximize the DDS experience. So really cool overall functionality in admin and company. And with that, we will jump into our first polling question. So Kim, I think you need to launch the question. All right, so our first polling question is, where do you currently manage your budgeting process? Is it in the Sage Intacct general ledger budgets? Is it in the Sage Intacct budgeting and planning module? Is it in Excel files, adaptive insights, or other? And we'll give everyone a few seconds to go ahead and respond. All right, just a little bit longer. All right, we'll go ahead and close polling in 3, 2, 1, and we'll share the results. All right, so it looks like most people are still in Excel files, 40%. We also have lots of people using adaptive insights, which is great. A few people using the Sage Intacct general ledger budgets, a few in the budgeting and planning module, and then 5% said other. So with that, I'll throw it over to Irene.
Excellent, thank you. Good morning or afternoon, everyone. Happy to have you join us virtually for our new release webinar. Let's get started with budgeting and planning. Of course, the polling question kind of leads to tell us what people are doing. Intacct does have a couple of options, of course. There's the standard budgeting module, and then there's the budgeting and planning subscription module. Lots of new features happening with the budgeting and planning module, especially around uploading. We all upload data into budget software, right? Whether it's adaptive or Intacct or whatever we're doing, but they've added some user-friendly information for the budgeting import, a step progress bar that has the step name in the tooltip so you know where it's at in the process, a collapsible management pane so that you can see more of your spreadsheet while that process is happening. Adjustable column widths, yay. So if you've got columns that have wide widths, you now can spread those out and see what's in those columns. And a back button that returns you to the previous step without losing the selections that you've already made. Nice enhancements there. And continuing, employee related information. This one's a little bit unique and it takes a little bit of reading, but basically over in Sage Intacct, if you have some employee related GL accounts and they have categories that have a description similar to benefits or compensation or 401k, those categories are automatically identified by SIBP, and then they're going to be automatically mapped into the salary and wages group budget line item with that associated category. So some AI stuff going on there, right? Where it's kind of looking and reading and making some analysis and decisions. You can now click on the total benefits drill down to display each component that makes up your total. You can select a new Use and checkbox to display budget data that meets all of the tags you choose when you add multiple tags in the tag field. So just they continue to enhance SIBP with some options in that module. Back to you, David. General ledger.
Awesome. Thank you, Irene. All right, a couple cool new things here in GL. The first of those being the Sage Intacct GL outlier detection is now available. So you may remember I covered this in the last webinar that we did. In the last release, this was kind of introduced. It was made aware that this functionality was going to be rolling out, but it's finally here and it's going to be available to everyone. All you have to do to enable it is go to company subscriptions, find the one for the GL outlier detection, go ahead and turn it on, and you'll be good to use this. So basically what GL outlier detection does is that it's going to work in tandem with your GL approvals. And basically it's just going to provide a heads up. It's going to shoot you an email when an entry might just look a little bit out of the ordinary. And so the program, because it's machine learning and AI, it's going to learn better from your data as it accumulates, as it keeps running and providing updates. And it's just going to provide better notifications as it goes on. So a really cool new thing. I'm excited about seeing how it rolls out and develops as we go further into the product.
Yeah, and a good call out there too, David. Yeah, absolutely. If you are using GL approvals, no harm in turning it on and letting it start accumulate that data. And if for some reason you find you don't like it, you can always turn it off. But the sooner you turn it on, then the sooner it's going to start collecting your data to give you good insight into your general ledger. Thank you.
Yeah, good call out. Next is the ability to delegate approvals when you're out of office. Again, want to highlight that this was an idea from community, so great job getting that voted through and onto the product roadmap. Basically, all this is that you now have the ability to set up a delegate in your user preferences for when you go out on PTO, you're out of the office, you might have a sick day. This is a really cool new functionality here to not hold up the approval process by being able to assign somebody else when you are out of the office. And so all you need to do to enable delegation is just go to the general ledger menu, set up more approval delegation and manage the approval delegation. You'll see a list similar to the screenshot here below. And say, for instance, I'm out of office and I need Irene to cover for me. I can go ahead and enter Irene's name there, and any approvals that would get routed to me will be routed to Irene for the duration that I'm out of office. So cool new add here for approvals. And then finally, next slide, in general ledger is going to be the enhanced approver support. This is one that I know I'm super excited about. And I know a lot of people were kind of looking for this functionality, so I'm super glad that it's here. And basically what this is you now have the ability to designate a user group instead of just an individual user in the approver, the substitute approver for your GL approvers. So this is really great because now you're going to be able to have a group of people to help spread the workload across how many ever approvals you're getting, approvals needed for your journal entries. And so it's not just limited to one user. The process won't get hung up on just this one person if a bunch of things are flowing through. And so it's really great to expand that out to a group of people who are going to be able to do that. So really cool new here. And we do want to call out that even if the submitter is part of that user group, they're not going to be able to approve their own entries, as this would just go ahead and get sent to whoever's in that substitute approver. So kind of the same functionality you would expect, but is also being expanded to the user groups. And with that, I will go ahead and hand it off to Irene, who's going to talk to us about consolidations.
Yeah, absolutely. Consolidations. One of the new features, if you're using global consolidations, you're going to want to go check this out because you now have the ability to add an elimination account adjustment on your book setup. So in the past, all of the entries related to global consolidation went to the accounts that are on the book information tab. So here now you've got that ability to have a different account for adjustments. Much easier reconciliation then because you'll be able to have those different those adjustment amounts broken out into their own account. The cumulative translation adjustment still going to go to the CTA account as it was before, right? And then of course your net income, depending on where you put your books, if it was a balance sheet account or a net income type of account for the actual exchange or loss, that will still go where that's designated, but these adjustments will be pulled out into their own separate adjustment account. So go check that out if you're using global consolidations, and then make sure you pick the account that you would like. It is, of course, defaulting to the main account on your current book information. And announcing domestic consolidations. There is a subscription required to this. This is all about, like the picture shows here, you can tell I'm from Montana, so I've got my Montana cities down here. But if you're a domestic corporation, right, or organization, you don't have to be a corporation, and you want to do consolidations with all of your domestic entities in Intacct, you'll now be able to do that. So it allows companies consolidating in a single currency to have a faster close with that auto elimination process. If you're not familiar with consolidations, that's what that allows, is that ability to automatically eliminate all of your intercompany transactions for your financials so that you can have a consolidated financial without all of the intercompany accounts. You have the ability to use separate GL accounts for posting in your elimination adjustments. You actually set up an elimination entity. So transactions post to an entity. It doesn't cost anything for elimination entities. And so all of your elimination entries post. You'll also have the ability to have KPIs in Intacct then, because KPIs come with consolidations. And of course, you can do multiple consolidation books. If you look at my slide, I could consolidate Helena and Billings into my Montana entity, and then I could consolidate my Montana and Idaho into my corporate. So it just gives you that ability to be able to consolidate in a domestic environment where you don't have multi-base currency entities. You can still have multiple transaction currencies. So you could have transaction currencies in Canada and you're US based. You just can't have multi-base entities. So very nice, happy to see that come out. In multi-entity, a couple things related to multi-entity. There is a new entity restriction option. It is under the subscriptions and configuration setting. You'll go in there where it's multi-entity console is turned on. You can restrict access to the top level only now, if that makes sense. A lot of organizations do master records at the top level and transactions at the entity level. But if your type of organization is one where you're doing transactions at the top level because you are doing a lot of allocations across entities with all of your transactions, you can check this box to restrict access to only the top level. Or you can restrict subledger transactions to the entity level only. So if you want to make sure all of accounts payable is only done in the subledger, then you can turn that on. Notice it's not by module, it's kind of an all or nothing thing, but a couple of options that are available there. This is kind of an exciting one. This is related to that location dimension being required, right? We all know entity and location share the same dimension. You can see on my screenshot there, Intacct is now allowing you to save a transaction without a location. And if you do that, it will automatically default to the entity that you're in. So of course you cannot do this at the top level. But let's say you're in entity A, and this really was designed for organizations that only have one entity, so they didn't have to pick the entity when they were doing transactions. But I tested this, and from all my testing, it also works if you have more than one entity. But if you are entering a bill, as in this example, you do not pick a location, it will default to the entity without giving you an error. An interesting new feature that they added that will be beneficial to some organizations for sure. David, let's talk about inventory.
All righty. First thing we're going to cover here in inventory is the item cross-references for faster transaction entry. And so, as you might know, sometimes your customers and your vendors have completely different identifiers or SKUs that they might use to refer to the item IDs that you use within Intacct, which can sometimes make entering your transactions really, really challenging. And so with this new item cross-reference functionality, you're going to be able to associate identifiers with your customers and vendors for what they use to refer to an item for the item ID that you use within Intacct, which is going to make your transaction entry a lot easier. And so basically, how does it work? So within Sage Intacct, you'll now be able to create an item cross-reference, which is what Irene is showing on the screen now. So we're in this item, and within the item, we have the new item cross-reference tab. And with that, we're able to set it up for both vendors and customers, what they might refer to the item ID as. And what this will do is that Intacct is going to go ahead and just translate this information onto any transaction. So for instance, if we go into a vendor invoice or a purchase order, and we enter in the item ID that we would use as the vendor.
So we're gonna pick the vendor first.
Mm-hmm.
We have to pick the vendor.
Mm-hmm. And then we would put in what the vendor refers to the item as. And when we do that, you'll automatically see that the item ID on our end will automatically get populated. So again, really cool new functionality here, just to kind of alleviate headaches, so you don't have to keep going back and forth and figuring out what item refers to what. So really cool new functionality here. And I do want to note that this is rolled out to purchasing, order entry, and inventory transactions. So it's going to be across all three of those modules.
Yeah, correct. And of course, as you might expect, depending on your item type, you may or may not be able to add a vendor versus a customer. If it's a purchase only item type, you can't add a customer. Okay, if it's an order entry only type of item, you can't add a vendor. But if it is inventory type or non-inventory, you'll be able to add both, either or. Yeah. Thank you.
Next in inventory, we have the run maintain inventory valuation in quick mode. You're going to hear me referring to the maintain inventory valuation tool as the MIV, just because it's a lot quicker to say it that way. So just a note that that's what I'm referring to. And so basically the MIV is a feature that helps you keep your inventory costing as up to date as possible. And so to provide the ability to update it in an even faster way, Sage Intacct added a new quick mode to the MIV tool. And so what you're going to notice now is that when you go into the tool, you're going to see it has two tabs. One for basic, which is all the new functionality that was added in this release in the quick mode. And the advanced tab will be all the existing functionality that if you've used the tool before, you might be a little bit more familiar with. And so basically, when you go ahead and you open the MIV, you're going to see a table at the top that's going to display all the recent events that have occurred since the last update of the MIV tool that might affect any of your costing in the system. And so if the table indicates that costing is affected here, all you're going to want to do is click Run Now at the top right of the screen, and your costing is going to be updated as necessary. So cool new option here for the MIV tool, just to run things on a more quick and kind of up-to-date basis. Next slide. Next is also another thing that has to do with the MIV, and that's going to be the new custom report object for the tool. And so this object is called the item valuation costing changes history. This is going to basically work in conjunction with nightly runs of the MIV tool in either the quick or the advanced functionality. And it's really just going to help give visibility into your transactions that are creating valuation changes in the system. So all you need to do to get this report is to go ahead and install it by going to Platform Services, all customization tools, custom packages. You'll locate this object in this report, you'll install, and then after that, you'll be able to run it as an out-of-the-box report, and you'll also be able to use it as an object in the custom report writer to go ahead and edit and customize it as needed to suit your needs. Next slide. And then we'll just cover a few other smaller inventory enhancements. The first of those being the ability to import build kit transactions. And so as you might know, sometimes stockable kits need to be built before they can be sold. And so you're now able to import these into the system rather than having to manually create them one by one, which especially if there's a high volume of these, it can be a big task, can be a time suck. And so this change will hopefully save you a lot of valuable time when entering in these transactions. After that is the ability to view items in a bin. And so warehouse managers now have the ability to easily manage inventory when they can see what's inside of these bins. And so Intacct added a new bin items tab, which you can see there in the screenshot. That's going to be on your bin information page, so that when you view a bin, you'll be able to really quickly see if it's empty, if it has quantity of one item, it has multiple quantities of multiple items, just giving a lot greater insight into what is in that bin at a quick glance. And then finally is the expanded costing method for tracked items. And so for any items that are tracked with FIFO costing, Sage Intacct is now going to factor the tracking attribute when it determines which units of the item are sold. And from that, it's going to go ahead and calculate your cost of goods sold as well as the remaining value of the inventory. So overall, lots of cool changes here in inventory if you are using the module. Hopefully going to help save you some time. Next slide. All right, next we'll jump into purchasing and order entry. There was one big change here for both modules in this release, and that is going to be that there are more date format options for your email documents. And so previously, you might have noticed that email documents were always sent using the format of month, day, and year, but you now have the ability to send emails with dates that are going to be in your vendors or your customers' preferred format, which is going to make it a lot easier for them to scan and process their emails. So for instance, European customers might prefer a date format of day, month, and then year. So with this change, it's going to enable you to send invoices or documents to those customers in that format. So basically how this works is that there's a new date format list that's going to be under your user preferences menu. And it's going to be used in tandem with a checkbox that's going to exist on the email templates that you use to send out emails to your customers or vendors. And so when a document is when a document is sent using an email template, the new option is going to go ahead and determine what date format should be used in the date merge fields that you might have in your template. And so if the box is obviously selected on the email template, and let's just say, for instance, that I have my date preference set to day, month, year, the email template will go ahead and make sure that all the dates that are sent in that are following that format. If the box isn't selected, the system is always going to default to month, day, year as the general date format. And so this is a really, really great new option to go ahead and, again, customize for your customers and vendors. Just make it a whole lot easier for them to view these documents. It's something I'm really excited about. And with that, I will throw it over to Irene, who's going to talk to us about reporting.
Thank you. Reporting and insights. How about another polling question? Kim.
Oh, sorry, I'll go ahead and cover this. So the poll here is, our organization utilizes the following features within Intacct's financial reports. So this is the multiple choice, so please select all that apply. Do you use the computations tab, the dimension-based grouping, computation account groups, statistical accounts, and scheduling and emailing reports? And we'll give everyone a few seconds to go ahead and just get their answers in here. All right, we'll give it just a little bit longer. Okay, and we'll close the poll in 3, 2, 1. We'll go ahead and share the results. So it looks like most people are using dimension-based groupings. Second most being statistical accounts. Pretty even here on scheduling and emailing reports, as well as computation accounts groups, both around 25%. And then we have 16% using the computations tab.
All right, thank you. That's good information. Hopefully we can increase that number as you start learning more and more about things that you can do. Computations in Intacct are really awesome. They get you out of Excel, so keep that in mind, and please reach out if you have questions or need more help in learning those functionalities. We are here to help. That being said, let's talk about the enhancements to the financial report writer. And I'll be honest, this is my favorite. I love report writing. There's so much power in Intacct once you learn all of the functions and features and things that you can actually do. So I'm really excited about the new things that are coming, and I know some of you are going to be as well. First of all, this one is just a cosmetics enhancement. They have separated the types of reports in Intacct into what they're calling core and what they're calling advanced. Core, everybody has core, financial reports and financial graphs, which is shown there. Advanced, custom reports, which is the custom report writer. Everybody has that as well. And then there are two other types of options that are subscription based. One is the interactive custom report writer. That would be under the advanced tab. I don't happen to have it installed here, so it's not showing, but it would be under advanced. And a new interactive visual explorer, which you're going to hear a little more about from David in a little bit. So those are there and available. Also, one of the things is the report type and report audience. I'm going to go over into Intacct and we're going to look at the financial report writer. So if you have been noticed, of course, in the last, almost a year ago, I think, release, I'm going to go into a P&L that I have. When I click on edit and go into a financial P&L, I have my report type and my report audience, right? So that I can designate maybe who this report is for, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they've added that to the interactive report writer, the custom report writer, and the visual explorer that's coming out. So you'll be able to designate that information in those other items as well. So that's the first thing that they did. Then they added the preview of the date. If you haven't run any financial reports yet, you may not have noticed this. If you have, this is really awesome, but you do have to check a box to make that happen. Let's go back into our P&L in Intacct, and I'm going to go to the columns tab. In the columns tab, I have a column that is current year through current month, and I'm expanding it by months. So if I run this report and we do a preview, you can see that I have January and February because we are in the month of February. So I have two columns because I'm expanding the time period. In my column, it's giving me a preview of what the dates are. So based on the as of date up here, that is going to change. So because I'm doing it as of February, right, today, it's running it through the current month of 2/28. If I change this to last year, notice my preview says, okay, you're going to run it from January through December of 2020. So it's reading the reporting period and the as of date and adjusting that preview of the dates. See that as you do that. Very nice. If you would like the user to see a preview of those time periods, you'll click on filters and there's a new option right here next to the as of date that says show time period. Okay, so if I go back to my report over here, I'm going to close this. I'm going to save my changes. I've checked the box and I'm going to run the report. And you'll see that now next to my as of date, I have based on my as of date, what time period it shows. And look, it says it's going to expand by months. So I know that's going to happen. And of course, this is going to refresh based on a date that I put in. So this is really cool. If you have multiple columns, so let's say you're not expanding, but you literally have hard-coded 4 columns into a report, then yes, you're going to see 4 columns here as well as to each date that that column is going to generate. I know there's some smiles out there. I know it because this is really awesome. For so long, we've wanted to be able to know exactly what the report is going to have in the columns. Now we have that ability. Very exciting. A couple other features that are very nice is filters, right? We do filters in our reports, but they're not displayed on the report. Well, if you would like those displayed on the report, you can go to the filters tab and I'm sorry, let me show you where this is. You're going to go to the format tab. Let me close this and get back over into my report. I will go ahead and edit again. You're going to go to your format section. You're going to go to page setup and columns where you can have a footer, and right down here is show filter tabs and prompts, and then that will be shown in the filter section of the report. And last but not least, if you like dashes instead of zeros, there you have it. You can now have dashes instead of all those zeros on a report. Very nice. This one is really cool too. How many of you have department managers where you're doing department manager reports and you want to set up a scheduled financial report to run and have it just go automatically to the department manager, their individual report? Now you can do that. So on the financial report where you schedule financial reports, there's two new checkboxes: individual report next to department and individual report next to location. If you check those boxes, then you check email, then associated manager on the dimension record is an option for you to check. And as you can see down here, instead of entering an email to, it's going to go to the dimension managers. Very nice, so that you don't have to do different reports with hard-coded emails to your different managers. If you have department managers, but let's say you have two departments that don't have a manager assigned, then whoever schedules this financial report will get the copy of those managers' reports. All right, let's keep going. And then there are some new pre-built functions related to measures in the interactive report writer and the new interactive visual editor. So if you are using either one of those and you have any time-related measures, you'll see a bunch of options in there. There's an example of one of them in there where it's going to automatically do some measures for you, time-related measures in your reports. Very nice as well. Oh, and David, I think I said David was going to talk about this, but it's on my slide. Sorry about that. Yes, very exciting. Kind of looks like a dashboard, but it's kind of like a dashboard on steroids, okay? You do have to buy a subscription for it. It's not free, but from what we're hearing, it's pretty darn affordable. You can add commentary, which is nice. You don't have a lot of options on the existing dashboards to add commentary. A lot more robustness around the graphs, as you can see there. You can have multiple graphs within one actual item there. You can easily add and remove columns, but just a really much more robust dashboard, if you will, that is available now. It's out there and it's available, and excited to have people start using that in their systems. Very nice. All right, David, let's do polling question number 3, please.
All righty. Wait for that to launch. The question here is, are you using the new accounts receivable, receive a payment new window? Yes, I love it. Yes, but it needs a little bit more enhanced functionality. No, I haven't tried it and I'm still using the old receive a payment window. And we do not use AR in Sage Intacct. So go ahead and please select one, and we'll give everybody a few seconds to go ahead and choose. All right, just a couple more seconds here. Looks like close to 80% have voted. All right, we'll close the polling in 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and share results. All right, it looks like 8% say yes, I love it. 18% are saying yes, but it needs a little bit more functionality. 50% are saying that they have not tried it and they're using the old window, and 24% are saying that they do not use AR in Sage Intacct.
All right, good to know. I think that when Intacct rolled this out last release, the new screen, it was good, but it had a lot of needed a lot of help, right? And so you're going to see here today that they have added a lot of new features to that new window, as well as some other ones, and we'll get started with those right now. A very exciting one, AR receive payments. In that new window, you can now add attachments. All right, we've been wanting for a long time the ability to add an attachment on a payment, and now we have that ability to do that only in the new AR receive payments window, unfortunately not in the old receive payments window. If you are doing overpayments, you do have the ability to now designate 2 additional dimensions, the class dimension and the project dimension. I know that's a big deal for not-for-profits who use the class dimension for restrictions, things like that, and for other reasons too, of course, but 2 nice new features there. And then they just really did some nice enhancements to make this screen more user-friendly. One of the nice things that David and I get to do is we get to go through the preview environment and test these new features and functions before they go live. And so we still have the existing instance of Intacct and then the new features, so we can kind of test and play around and see the changes as they're happening, which made it really nice because I got a really good visual of how this works and really the added functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to Intacct again real quick. I'm going to go to Accounts Receivable, Receive Payments New. This is the screen that we're talking about. So within this screen, once we pick a client in here, I should have something under Armanino. Here's that attachment that's in here. Down below, here's my additional overpayment options. When you select an invoice, remember we have to go in and select an invoice. In the past, you had to select invoices, then you had to apply selected invoices, then you had to close. Well, now you can select which windows you want, and then you can immediately add and close in one click instead of 2 clicks, so that's nice. You also have the ability to drill down to the invoice from within this screen, which is very nice. Back over in the main screen, when you come into the invoices, notice that I can actually go back to the invoice from here as well, but I can also go to the line details. That pops up my invoice details section, and in here, look at this. I have the ability to go to the invoice, and now I have the ability to filter. In the screen, it doesn't show justice because I have one invoice. But for those of you out there that have customers with 10, 12, 20 invoices, you can click a column and sort the order of the columns based on any of the fields that are in there. You can also do a filter, so you can filter the information that's in here. So they just added really nice functionality for the payments window that gives you that ability to move around quicker, drill down, sort, look through that, especially if you have a lot of volume of invoices. The other thing they did was add 2 more fields to the actual list view of posted payments. So if I come to my received payments where my posted payments are, you're going to see these 2 new fields right here, deposit status and account ID. So you know exactly which account a payment went into and the status. So whether it's been deposited or whether it went to directly to the bank account, if it was a printed check. So the here it is, deposit status. Deposited, if it was part of undeposited funds. So 2 new fields available in the posted payments screen there. And I don't know if you noticed or not, but you also have the ability to create a custom view of posted payments, which has not been there before either. I think that was last release, but you have that ability to go do that. This is only though, look at this, you guys, if you go to accounts receivable, I went to my received payments new, and I have that there. If you go to posted payments, oh, it is there. My bad, never mind. I thought it wasn't there. It's there. Okay, and you can see the attachments from the list. So lots of cool new things happening. Thank you. David, back to you, cash management.
All righty. First thing we'll be covering in the changes in cash management is the new automatic bank feed refresh capability that was rolled out. So basically how this works is that when you have auto refreshes turned on with your bank feeds, your feeds are going to be refreshed every single 4 hours of every day, so that you're no longer going to have to manually go into the account or go into the recon screen and refresh it each day to pull in the transactions. So with this change, you're obviously not going to need to wait to act on transactions anymore, or like I said, manually go in and refresh. Instead, they're just going to flow in behind the scenes. It's really going to help free up your time so that you're not needed to go in and refresh, help speed up the overall recon process. We do want to note that you'll still be able to pull in transactions as needed if you're within kind of that 4-hour gap between automatic refreshes, to pull into the recon, to pull into the transactions page from the bank feed. But really cool new functionality here just to go ahead and try to automate some things with the recon process. Next slide. Next is the new GL Insight that is on charge payoffs and credit card transactions. Basically what this is you're now going to have a new tab that's called the posting details tab. And basically, this is going to allow you to validate the way these transactions are posting to the GL, specifically for credit card transactions or charge payoffs. Previously, when you were doing this and you wanted to look how it was posting to the GL, you'd have to go outside, create a new tab or a separate window, and go run a GL report on its own. Now with this feature, you'll be able to just slide right into that posting details tab. You'll be able to see how it puts it to the GL and any of the associated journals. So it's a really nice way to just have all the data in one place, so you're not needing to go into multiple windows or multiple tabs to get this. And we do want to note that this is currently for accrual books only at the moment. And the next slide. And then finally, oh no, sorry, not finally in cash management, second to last, is the enhancements for bank feeds and matching transactions. So basically the big change here is that you're now going to be able to act on your bank feed transactions outside of the recon page. And this is going to be especially useful for users that don't have any recon permissions. They'll be able to create additional transactions from the bank feeds directly in the bank transactions list. So what they'll be able to do is create funds transfers, service charges, interest fees, all that good stuff without ever having to go into the recon page to create these transactions. So all you'll need to do this is you'll go to the bank transactions, you'll hit view or edit on any of the transactions, and Irene's going to go ahead and demonstrate it right now. Yep, so we'll go to bank transactions. We will hit.
I probably don't have any in here, sorry. I'd have to go to the entity level, so.
Okay, no worries.
I wanted to make sure they knew where it was at under cash management, so, okay.
So from here, yep,
there
then we can go
one.
into view a transaction. And then up there at the more actions bar, you'll be able to create one of these matching transactions outside of the recon window. Again, changes here for bank feeds and in cash management in general, just really hoping to speed up your month-end close process, your recon process, really make everything a lot more smooth. And then finally,
sorry.
No worries. Finally, in cash management, we have introducing vendor payments powered by CSI. I do want to note that this is an early adopter program. Basically, what this is that it's a new way to automate all of your electronic payments and reduce time spent on your recons. And so with the vendor payments powered by CSI, a couple of the benefits are that it supports ACH, printed check, virtual card. You're going to have one system from invoice to payment. You're never going to have to leave Sage Intacct to receive any payments. You're going to have full visibility into your payment status, and you'll be able to easily onboard and update your vendors with this functionality. So again, this is early adopter. So if you are interested, you want to learn a little bit more, reach out to your account manager and see if you're eligible to go ahead and be brought into this program. And with that, I will hand it off to Irene to cover projects.
One enhancement related to projects, but this is a big one, attachments. Okay, so you're using the project module, not just the project dimension. So you're using the project module, and you code bills, you code journal entries, you code different types of transactions to projects, and those individual transactions have an attachment. Well, guess what? If you would like those attachments to be attached to the invoice that project module generates, you can now have that option. Nice for not-for-profits who are doing grant reporting and need to have that backup information on the invoice. At this point in time, it's an all or nothing. So all the attachments that are on those transactions that are included in the invoice are going to be included. You can't put them in any order. I'm guessing this is the first step of this functionality. So I'm sure there's more to come, but this is really exciting. That ability to take those source document attachments and move them along with the invoice. Contracts, the contract module. A lot of new enhancements on the contract module. So many, we just don't have enough time to go through them all in detail. Here are a couple of them. Billing frequency on the contract header is no longer required. So in other words, you can now have billing frequencies at the contract line level. Of course, there are certain requirements around that based on what types of frequencies that you're using. So you'll want to make sure and read into that. As expected, there are all sorts of behaviors because the contract module is a complex one, which is awesome. It has a lot of functionality into it. So there are some expected behavior if you are doing different frequencies on different contract lines. So make sure you read into those. Additional contract enhancements is prior to this release, you were able to clear the last active MEA allocation only for a couple of types of MEAs, but now they're also including quantity-based recognition contract lines, so that's nice. The ability to edit contract line grid layout, just like we do on the AP bill or other screen, you can now do that in contracts. There's new fair value effective dates, new locations for MEAs, prorating annual and quarterly partial periods for recurring bills. Just lots and lots of new features in contracts. And we've decided that there are so many new features related to contracts, not just this release, but the last 3 releases, that we've put together an Academy class that is going to help you implement successfully if you use the contracts module, all of these new features over the last several releases, not just this one. It's a 1-hour watch and learn class. The price is $150 list price. You are all clients of Armanino, so you can get a 50% off preferred pricing code. Just email academy@armanino to receive your code if you'd like to attend that class. Brad Makula, who is our absolute expert at contracts module, is going to be doing that class, and you will definitely learn how to implement and effectively incorporate all of these new features into your current business process. Thank you. Platform and web service enhancements, a few things for you techie people out there. There's now flexibility in how you assign URLs to your company and your company's content security policy. So if you are doing that in the company setup, you have some new features there. Of course, we saw there are that new item cross-reference that's happening. So of course, related to that, under the web services, there's going to be new objects. So there's available inventory and an item cross-reference object and a couple other changes to the APIs related to budgets, etc. David, construction enhancements.
Yeah, cool new enhancements for those using the construction module. Just 2 things to cover here in this release. The first is the ability to track production units in your project estimates. And so production units, I'm going to refer to them as PUs just as a shorthand, as you know, are used to track the output of several of your inputs of costs, whether that be material, labor, etc. And so prior to this release, you had to manually enter in all your PUs for each task. But now when you apply a workflow type to a PU in the project estimate screen, it's going to automatically just reflect the summarized PUs by task. Again, big change here to really help save manual entry time. And then the second change in construction is going to be the ability to convert order entry transaction lines based on the price. So now you have the option to convert based on a single amount or a price instead of just the quantity as it used to be. This needs to be enabled in the order entry configuration for this to work. A few details on this is that it only applies to non-inventory items. These items should have a standard cost value of 0 or nothing. And finally, price conversion is unavailable at this time for drop ship, landed cost, or kit type items. And next slide.
All right, advanced CRM integration. A lot of you have the CRM integration between Salesforce. This is Salesforce CRM integration. There is 2 types of integration that Intacct offers. There's a basic and an advanced. Now in the advanced one, you have the ability to, Salesforce will read that active non-posting. I'm going to go ahead and go over to Intacct. If you recall, I'm going to come to my department. So I'm going to go to Company, Setup, and I'm going to come to my departments. Last release, Intacct added that functionality in our dimensions to have an active non-posting dimension, right? So I could have a department header that had children departments under it, and I could use that department header, as in this example. This could be the roll-up of other departments below it. So that active non-posting. That was not available in this CRM integration. It is available now, and so it will read that in that integration. And again, more stuff related to contracts. There's so many integrations between Salesforce and contracts, and here now there is a prorate checkbox that has been added to the opportunity product. So if you do have that integration, you'll want to make sure and note that in Salesforce that you now have that ability to connect those as well on the contract lines. Lots of good information there. David, we did it. We left ourselves 5 minutes and we made it through. Let's go ahead and do our final polling question.
Yep. All right, so final poll question of the day is going to be, which of the following new release features you learned about today are of interest to your organization? Please check all that apply. Is it domestic consolidations, financial report writer enhancements, checklists, item cross references? And we'll give just a little bit to make sure that everyone is able to vote.
And if anyone has any questions, we'll open up for a Q&A session. I think we've got all that questions answered in the question box, David. So we can take some live questions here for a minute if anybody wants to see anything on what we covered today. A lot of good stuff. Good.
All right, looks like 73% have voted. We'll give everybody just a few more seconds. All right, we'll go ahead and close voting in 3, 2, 1. And we'll go ahead and share. So it looks like a majority of people are really excited about the financial report writer enhancements.
Yay!
Awesome.
Right.
Next most is checklists. So yeah, great functionality there. We have a few people interested in domestic consolidations as well as the item cross references. So yeah, lots of good stuff in this release.
Yeah, the financial report writer ones are ones we've been waiting for a long time. And I'm excited about the checklist one too, David. I know you and I, as we were preparing for this, we were really kind of playing around with it. I don't know if we mentioned it or not, but you guys, there is a preference related to those checklists. So under your username and you go to My Preferences, under the email section, down here under emails, there is a preference to get emails from those checklist notifications. So I wanted to make sure and call that out too, since there's so much excitement over those checklists. You know, it's a good start. I'm happy with it. And I do believe that Intacct will continually grow on what functionality is in there. I don't believe there's any reporting on it yet that I could find as far as actual reports. But again, I will look forward to more of those enhancements. Don't forget about the Armanino Academy. There's the website link. We're adding more and more classes all the time. Love having all of you in any Academy classes. I know many of you have taken that. Appreciate it. Questions? Any other questions that anybody would like to ask while we have just a couple minutes left?
Yeah, and Irene, I did see one earlier where someone had asked if there is a fee for the GL outlier detection. That was something that I didn't cover. There is no fee for the GL outlier detection. So again, if you do want to turn that on, it's free cost. You just need to make sure that GL approvals are on so that it can work in tandem with that.
Excellent.
Irene, it looks like a question came in on the reporting. It says, does the 0- replacement have to be done on each statement individually?
It is a setting in the report, yes. So that will answer your question, right? So when you go into your financial reports, it is a setting on the report itself. So yes, you will have to go in and do that change. And I haven't tested, that's a good question. I haven't tested if you set up a report template where you've chosen that 0, if that will come in on the template, but that might be something as well. But yes, it is a report setting. Good question. All right, any other questions before we let everybody get back to their crazy busy days? We really appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to come watch these new things, and really appreciate the fact that you're wanting to know what's new out there, taking your Intacct environment, you know, and learning those new features and using them in the system, right, so that you become a Sage Intacct power user.
Great. David and Irene, thank you so much for getting through that. There are their contact information if you would like to reach out to them. And just a reminder to please complete the survey at the end of this webinar. It helps us learn what we can do better and what information we can bring for you so that you're fully utilizing your system in the future. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.